Hello, it's April from April's Home, and today I thought I would share with you 4 of my favorite coleslaw recipes. First, we'll start off with my standard coleslaw. This is the coleslaw that I make to top my barbecue pulled pork sandwiches. I also like to make this as a side dish for barbecue dinners and a few other dinners as well. Classic coleslaw is just a really wonderful and refreshing side dish. I think it goes great with all sorts of barbecue type dishes. So I thought we would start with our classic coleslaw. I'm gonna make a big one today because I'm serving this for a family dinner. So I've got 2 bags of the 3 color coleslaws, 14 ounces. So I've got 2 bags of those. And for this sauce, you will need some vinegar. Since this is a classic regular one, I'm using white vinegar. Sometimes when I'm making a sweeter version, I will use an apple cider vinegar. You can also swap out apple cider vinegar if you'd like to use that in this recipe as well. You'll need some sugar, some mayonnaise, you'll need some milk, salt and pepper, and half of a finely chopped up red onion. So I'm going to go ahead and start by emptying my coleslaw into a nice big mixing bowl and getting my onion finely chopped. Okay, so I've emptied both bags of coleslaw into my nice big mixing bowl here. I've got a big mixing spoon here. What I like to do before I add anything to the coleslaw is I will look through it a little bit and pull out some of these tougher pieces of cabbage. Sometimes I'll leave some big pieces in if they look good, but I always like to just go through, make sure to pull out some of those tougher pieces. They don't taste very good when you bite into those if you're trying to eat a nice sandwich with a coleslaw topping or a nice side dish of coleslaw. So I do that first. And I've also finely chopped up my half of a red onion here. You can use half of a much smaller red onion if you're only doing a single batch. This was a pretty huge red onion, so I only needed half of that for this double batch here. So we've got that in, and I'm just going to toss this together. I don't like too much onion in my coleslaw, but I do love a little bit. It makes it have a nice flavor. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and set this aside and mix up my coleslaw dressing. So you'll start with a little bowl here, and I love to use this particular whisk to make all of my sauces. I will go ahead and link a similar one below from Amazon. They're very inexpensive, but it is a really nice whisk to work with coleslaw dressings. Okay, so I'm going to start by going ahead and putting about 1.5 cups of mayo into this bowl. I would do less if it was only a regular size batch, but because I'm doing 2 bags of coleslaw, I definitely want enough mayonnaise in here to make it nice and creamy. So this might be a little bit more than 1.5 cups, but it's about that. Next, I'm going to go ahead and add 2 tablespoons of vinegar. Vinegar is what gives this dressing a nice zing. When I'm making this recipe, I will often keep my milk and vinegar and sugar at hand until I get just the right mixture, according to the way I like it flavored. I really don't want to taste a lot of mayonnaise, and I really want to taste that zing from the vinegar, but also you'll need a little sugar to sweeten it up a bit. So I'm going to start with 1/8 cup of sugar. Just mix that in. And then I have 1/4 cup of milk here. I'm only going to add half right now, so about 1/8 cup. We'll see how that does. We'll just stir this all together until it's nice and smooth. And then we'll give this a taste to see where we're at, to see if we need any more sugar or any more vinegar. Or if we need any more milk to thin it out so that it will spread easily through our coleslaw. Okay, so I've stirred this up a bit more. I'm going to add a little bit more milk, and in a little while I will add my salt and pepper. But first I want to make sure that the sugar and vinegar ratio is just the way I like it. So now I think I'm going to go ahead and add another tablespoon of vinegar. Well, maybe I'll do half of a tablespoon, just so we don't do too much and then need to add too much more sugar. I'm also going to add just like a teaspoon of sugar. And we'll go ahead and stir this and see how it tastes. The consistency is just the way I like it, thin enough to spread throughout the coleslaw. So now I'm going to go ahead and give it another taste. And I actually think that that's pretty good. So now I'm going to go ahead and add my pinch of salt. If you hear a bunch of dogs in the background, My dog has his friend over, my son's dog, and they are two big labs, so they love to run through the house making all sorts of noise. Okay, and then I'm going to add a little bit of pepper here. Just a few dashes to give it some nice flavor. And then we'll go ahead and stir that up and give it a final taste. So again, what you're looking for is a nice balance between a thin enough sauce so that it goes through your coleslaw, a hint of sweetness, and a little zing from the vinegar. And what you don't want to taste is too much of just straight mayonnaise. So we're looking for that balance, and I think I got that with this batch here. It's always a little bit different every time, but that is all there is to it. Okay, so one more taste, and that is very good. So I'm going to go ahead and get the rest of these ingredients put away, and I'll bring back the coleslaw and we'll get it mixed up. We've brought back our coleslaw here, and we've got our dressing all ready to go. I always start by adding half and then mixing it all together and then adding the rest if I need it. That way it doesn't get too covered in sauce if it doesn't need it. If you wanted this sauce to be a little tiny bit thicker, you would just add a little bit more mayonnaise, but I like mine thin enough to coat all of my cabbage here. Go ahead and add a little bit more. And I'll go ahead and add the rest. And there we have it, a nice big batch of classic coleslaw. This is perfect to top, again, on your barbecue sandwiches. This is wonderful as a side dish to a fried chicken dinner. I even like classic coleslaw on top of hot dogs sometimes. So I'm going to go ahead and get this covered and chill it in the fridge for a couple of hours before I'm ready to serve it. And then I will transfer it into a serving dish. Here is my coleslaw in its serving dish, all ready to go for our pulled pork sandwiches tonight. This is only half of our coleslaw. I put the other half of our coleslaw in a little container here so it stays nice and cold in the fridge. When we are having a family dinner or a barbecue or anything like that, I love to serve only half of my cold salads. That way they don't sit out too long. If there's leftovers, they're kept safely in the refrigerator. And if we go through it a little bit faster, I can always grab the extra that I've set aside in the refrigerator. So this was our first coleslaw, the original coleslaw, just classic coleslaw. And now I have 3 more coleslaw variations to share with you. For my next coleslaw recipe, we are making a broccoli coleslaw. This is very similar to my classic coleslaw. The dressing is very similar. I'm going to be using white vinegar with this one and pepper. Pepper really goes along nicely with the broccoli. And in addition to the red onion, we're going to be finely chopping some broccoli florets to go into this coleslaw. So first I'm going to go ahead and start by chopping up my broccoli and getting my coleslaw in a bowl, and also finally chopping my onion and tossing that all together, and then we'll make our dressing. I've got my coleslaw, my bag of coleslaw emptied into my bowl here, and next I'm going to go ahead and add slightly less than half of a red onion finely chopped. And then next we'll add the broccoli. This looks like maybe 1.5 cups, 2 cups of very finely chopped little tiny pieces of broccoli. You want the pieces to be tiny like this. You want to cut off the ends or finely chop the ends. You don't want too many of the stem pieces in there, mostly the floret, and again, finely chopped. So we'll go ahead and add that. And we're going to go ahead and stir this together. So we've got our mixture of broccoli, onion, and coleslaw mix. And then we're going to go ahead and set this aside and make the dressing. For the dressing, you'll need a little bowl. You'll need some milk, pepper, mayonnaise, white vinegar, and sugar. To add to our little bowl here, you'll need a little whisk. You can use any standard whisk. I prefer this style of whisk when I make sauces. It's really wonderful. I'm going to start with probably close to 1 cup of mayonnaise here. I just kind of eye it. Like to make sure I have plenty of dressing for the coleslaw. So about 1 cup there. Start with, I like to use the cap, but it's about 1 teaspoon of vinegar there. So a couple teaspoons of vinegar to start with. And I just like to add my milk a splash at a time. Like so. We want to thin that out a little bit so that it will mix nicely into the coleslaw. But you don't want it to be so thin that it's not like dressing, because then it will have a harder time sticking to the actual coleslaw and it'll just slide off. You want it to be creamy enough to stick but thin enough to spread nicely. So we'll probably need a little bit more milk there. I don't like to add too much at first because sometimes I need to add a little bit more vinegar. Just a drizzle there, not even a teaspoon. Okay, and now for the sugar. This is a 1/4 cup and it's less than half of that, so it's not even 1/8 of a cup there of sugar. But again, we like to taste that and add as we go, just depending on whatever mayonnaise brand you're using. If you're using a different brand that you're unfamiliar with, the flavor might be a little bit different. So I kind of go by taste with this. So always have out some extra tasting spoons. So I'm going to go ahead and get that blended together really nicely and give it a taste just to see where we're at before I add the pepper. Still a little bit too much of the mayonnaise flavor, so I'll add another teaspoon of vinegar. You can also use apple cider vinegar. I tend to use the apple cider vinegar when I'm doing my apple slaws and my original slaws, but with the broccoli I do like to use the just regular white vinegar. I'm going to add another little bit, probably a couple tablespoons of sugar there. It was just too much of the mayonnaise flavor. And you can see it's really thinning out now, and that's why I didn't want to add too much milk at first, because when you add more vinegar, it will also thin it out. So now for another taste. And that is much better. It's a little bit on the sweet side, so I'm going to add just like maybe a half a teaspoon more vinegar. Give that a stir. And give it a taste. Each time I get a new clean spoon. I have a lot of spoons. Usually I use smaller ones for tasting, but I'm just grabbing my regular ones today. And that is the perfect flavor. Just enough of the vinegar, the little bite of vinegar, sweetness from the sugar, and we've added enough of those ingredients to bring down just the straight up mayonnaise flavor. Next, we're going to go ahead and add plenty of black pepper. This recipe is really wonderful with lots of black pepper. You can add as little or as much as you like, but you do want to be generous. Goes along really nicely with the broccoli flavor. You really want to make sure that you can see the pepper in your dressing there. And of course, you don't want to go too much, but it's surprising how much you can actually put in here and have it be just right. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and give this a try and check the level of pepper. This time I'm grabbing one of my smaller spoons. I'm going to add just a little bit more pepper and then I think we're good to go. So just add those ingredients by taste. And there's our dressing. Now we're ready to go and mix up our coleslaw. So we'll bring our coleslaw mixture back here. And we're just going to go ahead and add our dressing right to the coleslaw mixture. And then we'll give that a stir. Once we get this all stirred together, I'm going to go ahead and chill this for a little while. This is going to go great with our dinner tonight. This is a really nice coleslaw for just about any time of the year. You can serve this alongside of barbecue pulled pork, although I usually just do classic for that. You can serve it alongside summer barbecue. I think it would be wonderful with grilled chicken. Just anytime you want a coleslaw type salad, this is a really wonderful one. Okay, so there we have it. This is our broccoli coleslaw. I'm going to go ahead and transfer this to a serving bowl and get this chilled, and then we'll give it a try. Okay, here it is in its serving dish. I'm going to go ahead and cover this with plastic wrap and get that chilling in the fridge. I decided I would just go ahead now and give this a try. So I've got a little taste of this ready to go. Of course, it will taste a little bit better as it chills and the onion and the flavors kind of combine, but I'm sure it'll be good right now as well. And even not chilled, that was absolutely delicious. I may scoop myself out a little bit more to have for my lunch while I'm waiting for this to chill for dinner time. So that is a very delicious coleslaw recipe, broccoli coleslaw. Next, I'll be making Southwest coleslaw. Okay, so today we are making our third coleslaw. This is a Southwest coleslaw. You will need a bag of coleslaw mix, just like with the other recipes. This is a 14-ounce, 3-color coleslaw bag here. You'll need a can of drained and rinsed black beans, a can of drained corn, whole kernel corn. You'll need some picante salsa. You'll need 3/4 of a cup of ranch dressing. This is Greg's Ranch from Costco, but any ranch should do. You'll need a little bit of sour cream, a little bit of hot sauce, and just in case we need to thin it out a little bit, some milk. You will also need half of a finely chopped red onion. So I'm going to go ahead now and mix together my coleslaw and red onion in the bowl there. Then we'll add the other ingredients and make our dressing. Got my red onions and coleslaw in the bowl. I'm going to go ahead now and add my can of drained whole kernel corn. Just going to add that right to the pan. I've also drained and rinsed our can of black beans. I'm going to go ahead and add that in. Then I'm going to go ahead and get a spoon and toss that all together. Then we'll go ahead and set this aside while we make our dressing. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and make our dressing right here in this measuring cup. It shows a cup there, but it's actually closer to 1/3 of a cup. It's just kind of washed up on the sides a bit. I'm going to go ahead now and add about 1/4 of a cup of salsa right to the ranch dressing here. I can just see the measurement on the side as it goes up. There we're at 1 1/4. Can always add more later as well. We're going to go ahead and add a few dashes of Cholula hot sauce. Any hot sauce should do. You could just use your favorite. This is what I happen to have on hand. I don't want it to be too hot at first, but you may prefer it to be a little hotter than we do around here. We like things pretty mild. And then I'm going to go ahead and add in some sour cream. Again, about half a cup, maybe 1/4 of a cup of sour cream there, just to give it that delicious sour cream flavor, a little bit creamier of a ranch. I'm going to hold off on the milk for now. It looks nice and thin. The salsa helped thin that out quite a bit. I just always like to have milk on hand when I'm making dressings. A little tablespoon of milk or 2 can help thin it out just enough to spread it through your salad. I'm going to go ahead now and get a tasting spoon and see what the spice level is on our dressing. I also think chipotle would be a nice flavor in here. My husband does not prefer chipotle though, so I decided to leave any chipotle type ingredients out, but you could also give it a chipotle twist by blending up some chipotle peppers and then adding it to the dressing. Okay, let's go ahead and give this a try. I think it needs just a couple more dashes of Cholula. It's just barely spicy there. Okay. Once it spreads through the salad, you'll still want to be able to taste the spice. So even if you don't like spice too much and want to keep it mild, you'll still want to be able to taste the spice in the dressing. Because once it spreads, it's not going to be as spicy. I think I might also add just another teeny tiny squirt of sour cream, just so I can taste that sour cream flavor a little bit more. And I'm just using the squeezed sour cream because that's what I happen to have on hand. You can easily just add regular sour cream as well. Give that a good stir, and I'll give that another taste. And I think that is definitely zesty enough. I can taste all the ingredients. In the past, I have been able to find like Southwest Ranch already mixed together, which you could also use if you don't have any hot sauce, or if you find one you really like, you just would want to thin that out just a little bit so it will be able to go through the coleslaw, and you'd still want to add your salsa. Okay, so let's go ahead and bring back our salad here and give our dressing one more little stir. And then go ahead and add that to our coleslaw. I'm going to save a little bit left. Seemed like it made quite a bit. I don't want to overdress the coleslaw. Let's go ahead and give that a mix and see how it looks. It looks really wonderful so far. I love seeing the little black beans and corn in there. If you'd really like to kick it up a notch and you love jalapenos, you could probably chop up some jarred jalapenos as well. I think I'm going to add just a little bit more of this dressing, but you can see there's just a little bit left in there. I'm not sure I'm gonna need all of that. I've got that all mixed together. I left the last bit of dressing out. It seemed like there was plenty. I'm gonna go ahead now and get this in the serving bowl and get it chilling in the fridge. I'm also going to give this a try. Here's my Southwest coleslaw all served up in its serving bowl. I have a bit extra that I'll go ahead and put in another small container in the fridge that I can use to refresh this. I've kept out some for me to try now. I think that this is a wonderful coleslaw to serve with fish tacos or pork tacos or chicken tacos, or if you want to make a Southwest burger and add some of this on the side or on top. I think that that is a wonderful use for this Southwest coleslaw. So now I'm going to go ahead and give it a try. Okay, make sure to get a little bit of everything in there. And that is absolutely wonderful. That tastes so good. I'm really excited to have this tonight. We are having pork tacos tonight, and we will go ahead and serve this on top of the pork tacos. I think I'll be making this again too when I make fish tacos. Usually for fish tacos, I just do a really simple, spicy coleslaw without the black beans and corn. But I really love the addition of the black beans and corn in this. It really adds quite a bit more flavor. It's really, really good. So that is my Southwest coleslaw. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at this coleslaw. I will also be chilling this coleslaw like I did with the others. When you chill it, it gives time for the flavors to blend together a little bit more. So I think it'll be really, really extra good tonight after it's chilled for a bit. And next, for our last coleslaw, I'll be making an apple coleslaw. For our last coleslaw recipe, I will be making an apple coleslaw. I've got a bag of tricolored coleslaw here. I've got a couple apples here. You can use a third apple if you want. Today, I'm only using 2. Just want it to be a little less sweet today. But in the past, I have used 3. I will be peeling these and then slicing these into matchsticks. I will show you that when I get them all peeled and cut up. You'll need 1/8 of a cup of sugar. You'll need a cup of mayonnaise. You'll need a few tablespoons of apple cider vinegar and a dash of salt. You'll need a little bit of milk to thin that out, and you'll need a cup of golden raisins. You can use regular raisins too if you want, but I just think golden raisins look really nice in this recipe. So I'm going to go ahead now and get my apples peeled and chopped, my coleslaw in the bowl, and then I'll go ahead and mix up the dressing. And before I get to chopping up my apple, I'd also like to point out that one of the apples is a Granny Smith, and this one I believe is a Gala, a little bit sweeter apple. I've often used a mixture between Granny Smith and Honey Crisp. I like the balance of the sweet and the slightly more sour apples in this. That way you get a little bit of sweet apple and a little bit of tart apple. So here I have my apples all peeled, and I've just kind of taken them off the core, and now I'm slicing them nice and thin. You can see how thin they are, and then once they are sliced thin, I tip them on their sides and cut them into little matchstick sizes here. And I may decide to cut these in half if they're a little bit long, but I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of these apples. My apples are all chopped up. You can see some I've done in a little bit smaller sizes and some a little bit longer, but basically just nice thin matchsticks. I've got my raisins here. It's a little shy of a cup, but that is all I have left, and that'll do just fine. You can add as little or as many raisins as you like. And you can leave them out if you don't want them either. I also like to sometimes pull these larger chunks of cabbage out and cut them down a little bit smaller so that they're not so big in our coleslaw. Today I'm just using this as a side dish, so I think it'll be okay. So I'm going to go ahead and add my apples and raisins to my pan here. And then I'm going to go ahead and get the sauce mixed up. Okay, so now for the sauce, I've measured 1 cup of mayonnaise. I've got a bowl here with my special little whisk. I've got my 1/8 of a cup of sugar, some apple cider vinegar, salt, and milk to thin it out. So I'm going to go ahead and add my mayonnaise to the bowl. And to the mayo, I'm going to go ahead and add my 1/8 of a cup of sugar and a dash, just a little dash of salt there. Now I'm going to go ahead and add my apple cider vinegar. I've already measured out a few teaspoons there. And now I'm going to get this all stirred together. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and just put a splash of milk in here to begin with. We can always add more later. So just a little splash of milk there, and we'll get this stirred together, and I will add more vinegar and milk to get it to the consistency that I like. So I'm going to go ahead and stir this up and give it a try, and we'll see how much more milk and vinegar we need to add. I have this all stirred up. I added just a little tiny splash more milk to get it to be this nice drizzly sort of consistency that will spread nicely through our coleslaw. So now I'm going to go ahead and add this to the coleslaw here. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this all stirred together. After it's stirred together, I'm going to go ahead and cover this in saran wrap and get it chilled. Here it is thoroughly combined. I'm going to go ahead and give this a quick try before I get it chilling. Make sure to get a little apple and raisin and cabbage in there. Okay. And that is absolutely delicious. I love the flavor of the raisins and the apples with all of the cabbage in here. It's absolutely delicious. I'm excited to have this for dinner tonight. I have transferred this into a serving bowl. Now I'm going to go ahead and get this covered in saran wrap and let this chill for at least an hour or two. Even up to overnight. You can have this chilled and make it the night before. So that is my apple coleslaw. I hope you enjoyed taking a look at 4 different ways that I like to make coleslaw. Coleslaw is one of my favorite side dishes to so many different meals that I absolutely love all 4 of these recipes. I hope you give them a try, and thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you later. Goodbye.